Welcome to Echoes Across the Century. This is the outcome of more than a year's work with 14 schools and 17 livery companies, and we've been looking at the trades and industries behind the scenes of the First World War.
So the project began about, well, I suppose a couple of years ago with this installation, Degrees of Separation, which tells a love story between William Goss Hicks and Jessie Ellman. From that we have woven a vision that's taken in 240 young people's work, and then a whole set and an imaginary world that's been built in order to house their amazing creations too.
So we've covered a whole range of topics, a whole range of different facets of life in World War I. And
a whole range of experiences of those people who lived through it, be that those working behind the scenes at home, or those actually supporting the front line, or those on the front line. I guess they based it in reality and the truth that they'd understood, but then they were able to let loose their imagination and emotional expression. The whole thing has been about the emotional impact for the people who lived through that time, and they've had to imagine it in a very short space of time.
What we're thrilled about with this short film is it shows students from 6 or 7 schools on the project going out on visits, working with Jane, producing the most amazing artwork. Thank you.
So we've set all this up today, so the idea of telling about what it was like, feeding in the trenches, and we're trying to engage with the children. Imagine the soldier on his own, thinking about home and all the rest of it, those few minutes of respite. He's looking in his mess tin and just eating whatever's about.
Go and see how they're
let's go and see how we're getting on. Yeah, good.
Well, I think at the moment they are experiencing exactly what the soldiers and the cooks and the army chefs in the First World War were doing in the trenches and just behind the lines in the field hospital. They know full well their mates are out there in the cold. They know their boots are full of water. It's freezing in here, so they're having the complete experience of what it's like creatively to cook, to translate. How we turn it into an art project, I think will come over the 3 making days when we're going to do all sorts of things in relationship to it. But I think they're getting a really first-hand understanding of what life is like when you have to cook for hundreds of people. And an army marches on its stomach, so they understand the importance that if you haven't got food in your tummy, you can't do anything. You need it to be able to work. Morale, yeah, it's one of the high points of the day, isn't it?
Yeah. You're in a muddy hole for so long, and you know, someone comes and hands you this tin of nice warm food. It just gives you that moment where everything around you just kind of turns away, turns off, and you're just involved in that, and it brings you back to life again.
Right, this is the original First World War uniform. It's pretty tight.
Yeah.
It's really itchy because it's got no inlining.
No,
so it's all like that on the inside. It's really itchy.
Yeah, it feels really rough.
Yeah. The hat's pretty tight around my head, so.
Yeah. But I mean, this must have been really heavy when it was wet, and really hot in the summer.
Yes.
We'll have a go at mixing it.
Right to the bottom. What is at the very bottom? It's the onion. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I can't think how to do it, but it's so heavy. I got onion! Oh my gosh,
So we've been making our lunch, how they would make it during the war. So we've been making a vegetable stew and a crumble, and then we got up to making some bread as well for our lunch in the style that they would be making it during the war. Yeah, it gave me a bit of an understanding of like what things are about and like how things used to be, and seeing it in perspective today like made it a lot clearer.
I'm about to make a demonstration of a World War I loaf, which is being made with flour of the exact same specification that was available in World War I, including barley and very fine ground fibre and bran and all of that sort of thing, which makes the flour look quite grey compared with the modern day flour. So that's what they're going to be making.
And I guess the point is a bit really that hasn't changed in 100 years.
Certainly the bread hasn't. It's exactly the same process as we were using 100 years ago, or 1,000 years ago even.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Right, everybody remember the loaf of bread I showed you yesterday?
Yeah. Are we going to
make it today, remember this?
Yeah.
So we're going to be making this today.
Yes,
that's the flatbread, and that's the loaf, okay? So I'm going to show you how to make the loaf first of all, and then you're going to be making the flatbread to eat with your dinner, okay? So what I've got in here is flour. Remember the trench flour I was telling you about yesterday? Well, that's 500 grams of that flour and some salt. And I'm going to add some yeast. And then you're going to let it sit for about an hour. And then you're going to make it into the right shape, pop it in the tin.
Okay, so JC, what have you been up to this morning?
Well, we've been in my group we were making rhubarb crumble, and we first put the butter in with the flour sort of fruit and mixed it up in my group, and then we added sugar and just mixed it a little bit more.
Well, so yesterday we were sort of told about how they were fed during the war and how they were able to get food to them in the trenches, and I think us making all of the stews showed us what vegetables they used and how they would need to prepare all of the ingredients. Yeah, and then baking the bread kind of ties in with yesterday, because they didn't really have much, well, they weren't able to get the ships to transport the flour, so they had to use loads of different ingredients, and then we're making trench loaf. So yeah, I think that the food makes the soldiers want to keep fighting the war or want to keep staying away from home, even though they miss their home quite dearly. If they've got a piece of home in their bread or in their stew, they're kind of going to think, I'm doing this for my family. But I think it was quite fun and interesting, because before we started cooking we were told a bit about their history here, and I think it just gives us an idea of, well, where our soldiers have come from and what they do to help our country.
Here today at Archbishop Tennyson's School, and we are on day 4 of the project, which means we're on the mad making side of it.
I'm making this tin with his autograph book. It's from the time of the war. Trying to remake a war scene.
They've had one day's introduction, which they've learnt about how my work works and how artworks can express heritage. We've also looked at the First World War and how much they already know about the First World War. We've looked specifically at the school's memorial, because they've got 58 boys from the school went to the First World War and didn't come back. There's a very direct link, and saying, therefore, you know, you can see, can't you, it would be you. It would be you in 2 years' time going. You resonate with the human quality of it. That's what they're putting into their artwork, is what they've seen in the objects that they've seen, that then they tell a story of people's hopes and triumphs and friendships and camaraderie, and those things, as art does, transcends all boundaries. Okay, glue gunning. Is everybody doing all right? Wow, wow, look at this. Yeah. This is a real broken world, isn't it?
Still got some barbed wire and this looks like it's got bullets through it.
It does. It's a really inventive piece. I love it.
Thank you. Because we didn't know anything, then we were sort of trying to think about what it would be like for him and what he might have with him. And I thought that he would probably have pictures of his family. And he might have a diary. Because they needed things to keep him. Because like when they weren't attacking, they were just sort of sitting in the cold and the wet. And they needed stuff to do. I based the lid on the story of the man who had his tin inside his breast pocket, and when the enemy shot him, the tin saved him because it went through the tin and not him.
There are at the back some pages that are coffee stained, ready to write letters. So most of you have been imagining the letters that have come from home in those tins that the soldiers have kept. So it would be great if we could do a display where we actually know that the letter's in the tin, but we've copied it out. So you write some sort of a letter to or from that soldier to hang up, okay?
It took quite a long time to make. Like looking at it now, you think it took me a week to make this, but the background itself took us like a whole day to make. It's like crazy how long it takes. So that we sort of put everything that's holding dear to them in the tins, so sort of books, sketchbooks, coins, information about them which we research. Yeah, that's what we've been doing for the parts of the week.
But this is like, yeah, it's like a kind of like a mini diary.
Can you read this? Because it's kind of hard to read. P.T. Coffee, he will remember. We will. Yeah, it's cool.
I think it looks really good now because the tree looks like it's been broken up. It looks a bit like it's got barbed wire on it, and it looks like it's sort of been blown up, but not completely. The butterflies, we've made one for each soldier, and I think there were 58 people from this school who went out to fight in the First World War.
Well, here I'm more focusing on, well, his feelings. So here I have like barbed wire around a loved one, indicating that he feels like a rift is growing between them. We've got the relationship with his family and his loved ones, and then here he's got relationships with his fellow comrades and friends that might have died during the war. And I'm doing a name tag of which says when he dies, where he died. And he was 20, and he died on the 19th of the 8th, 1916. Well, for me personally, I would think that like it's, well, just a living hell.
When this blasted war is over.
Are you enjoying making it?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you pleased with what you've done?
Yeah.
When you started the panels, did you think, yeah, that's going to turn out really well?
No. It was horrible.
You thought, oh, it's rubbish. And then here you are. They do look amazing. And I would really like you to write your own curating label for this, for what the tin means. Because then you'll be speaking, you'll already know what you might say if somebody was going to ask you in Guildhall. So tell me about your work, because you've kind of written it. It helps you to remember several months later what it was all about.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
The fault lines were strained as the century dawned. The dark riders poised just as Shorus had warned. A tangle of treaties.
We are going to go down the river on a cruise, which has kindly been done by the Master Mariners. And we're going to one of the ships, and we're going to have a look around. It's the HQS Wellington, thank you Josh. And yeah, we're going to have a look at the artefacts that are there in the museum, and then we're going to get told a little bit about the history so that we can do some more things for our artwork when we get back tomorrow.
Their fathers before, all pals together, they flock to enlist for a quick fight with Jerry. That's not to be missed.
Welcome, my name is Rebecca, and I'm going to be working with you throughout the day here today. We also have Captain back with us as well, and he's going to be working with you in your groups.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go up
onto the bridge and the wheelhouse. Before we go up there, I want you to follow me in single file up these ladders. You have to hold on both hands. The merchant ship, the wheelhouse, where on a Royal Naval ship you had a whole lot of crew down here doing the job, and there was a voice pipe that came down from the officer of the watch. What do you think the convoys were bringing to the UK? Food. We nearly starved in 1941 because the Germans were using can anybody tell me what the Germans were using to try and stop the convoy? Submarine, well done. Okay, they were called U-boats.
We were up late last night trying to do some stockings for the young lads that we've got on board who are under 19. We found lots of odds and ends in the Red Cross store and we managed to fill about 40 stockings. The head waiter was busy last night arranging bunting all round the ship that gives it a very festive air. We're very sad. We've got nothing that we can give the men for Christmas, and so many of them are so ill. The Padre held a celebration at 6:45 in D Ward, and then another one at 7:40.
So Peter, your grandfather was in World War I.
That's right.
What was his role?
He was the Regimental Sergeant Major of London Scottish, and so they were territorial army unit.
Yeah.
And I brought an album, a green album, showing the children all about the camps and the people that were there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I said to them, what is really important when you think about war is also the camaraderie.
Yes.
And the friendship. And
Yeah.
of course you think about the Powell's battalions and so on.
Yeah.
And of course my grandfather came back all right, but he lost a lot of his people, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was about his experience of the war and keeping the company together.
Mm-hmm.
And the pictures of the camps, and of course in those days you just had bivouacs and things to stay in.
Yeah.
And then the children sort of said, where are the loos? And we said, well, you actually dig them in the field, actually. And they said, ooh, so there we are. So that was it. So really the message for them was friendship and kindness and consideration exist and grow even in conflict.
In the context of war.
You hang on to the friendship.
Yeah.
And you build on it at the end, really.
Mm-hmm.
And you transform it back into glowing leaves as opposed to dead ones.
Absolutely. Which is what the tree is emblematic of, really, isn't it? Is the idea of regeneration and regrowth. And,
I think that's right.
And the power of peace.
First of all, we visited the Poplar Peace Memorial, and that was something that was very relevant to them because it's a memorial for children, 18 children that died in the First World War. And I think from that they could empathise with that and really connect with the war from that perspective.
It was a way, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because you can't go into too much detail with the First World War when they're so little, because you don't want to give them too much of a horror story to have to really... The horror of the trenches is too much for 6-year-olds. But you needed them to have an understanding of what war might be, so that the understanding then of peace and what that is at the end of war, what that might be like. So the Imperial War Museum is brilliant because they saw all these amazing artefacts. You take so much in visually that you don't have to labour the point. They've seen it all. They've gone past images of the trenches. They've been in the trench. They've had the tank come over the top. It's all gone in on some level. And then we were able to talk more about the children and the parents and why did those parents want to remember their children? Why did they want to put up a war memorial, or a peace memorial for their children? How do we remember those who've passed on, and why is it important? Why might we want to remember somebody who's died?
And they were very engaged with the activities which Jane had planned for them. So she used a lot of new technologies such as laser cutting to make moths, and then they used traditional techniques such as masking fluid and staining with inks. Perhaps Jane could give more detail on that. Yes, and coffee.
Sprinkling freeze-dried coffee, that's always fun.
And they absolutely loved that.
They did, didn't they? They really enjoyed that. It was a really good way. And that whole idea of the one man, one moth, you can get your ideas around. Each moth kind of means a man. So it was a way of creating a lot of artwork to go in the cases, but that they could have fun experimenting really, and somehow embed what we've been trying to say in all of the visits into one sort of activity really. Onto Lee.
They did lots of observational sketches, and there was from an educational standpoint, I think it was very well scaffolded. The children, there was a good sequence of learning steps. So we went from observational drawing onto copying that and then enlarging it, working on pattern, and then Jane planned lots of other things that worked really well.
And then I suppose we went on to all the different techniques with the tree. It is the symbol of hope at the end of war, which one has to hope that humanity might reflect on conflict, and they wanted it never to happen again, and of course it happened again and again and again, and still is. But at least we talked about the idea of reflecting on disagreement and how you might have peace, and why might that be a good thing to have peace. So they made this.
So I really liked how we were using new technology with traditional techniques, and that worked really well with the children.
I have to say they're delightful children. That is, and they obviously they just really respond to you as well, which is very, very lovely to see. They've just been delightful. Working with the enthusiasm of 6-year-olds is just it's a joy. It really is, and they've been great. So have you, and thank you. Thank you.
I would wholeheartedly recommend Alison and Jane for an art project, because the children got so much out of it.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Adam. You've been just super.
They certainly seem to remember what the angel represented, and they understood that we were making things to remind them so that people didn't forget, and I think that was a very important message. So I was very pleased with what the children had retained from what they learned, and we have to develop their knowledge and understanding. Box ticked.
That's good. I was amazed that they remember the name. They remember the name they look for. I thought it was a good way of connecting with the War Memorial, was because these children, who are your children, Adam, they're 6, and the children of the War Memorial are 5. So they are peers, and if it were 100 years ago, it would be them, that kind of thing. So the fact they've remembered the name is really interesting.
And they even said their mummies and daddies were very, very sad, and so they raised a lot of money to build the angel, so that they could always remember the children. Wow. I thought, gosh, where did that come from?
Brilliant. They did remember it all then. They did. It all goes in. Brilliant.
No, it's wonderful.
When this blasted war is over, oh how happy I shall be when I get me civic clothes on. No more soldiering for me.